I'm very happy to introduce two resident experts here at Charlestown who's going to be offering the program today on kind of it's a trust and verify, don't trust but verify program. Hope Tillman is a retired librarian and has worked extensively with the internet, training librarians on how to use that technology, and she's written books on the subject. And she's a Mac expert and also a Windows expert. And she is co-leader here with the Chug program, but also runs the Tug Technology Users Group to help people with some of the basics. And you probably have seen her on numerous Zoom calls as kind of the Zoom moderator. And Bart Colbert is a fairly new resident, meaning about a year or so. And he is an MD who has specialized in drug safety. And he continues to do that in consulting practice. And he's going to be talking about some of how to find trusting health websites and other things. So I'm just very happy to turn the program over to Hope and Bart.
I'm basically going to talk about two different topics, but they are related. First, protecting yourself against remote access scams, and how to pick the reputable tech support. I don't know that there's such a thing as best tech support, but reputable. So what is a remote access scam? Let's see, a common way a remote access scam happens at somebody, a perpetrator, contacts a victim, either by phone, email, or a pop-up ad, claims to be an employee of a legitimate company, such as a computer software security company, a cable internet company, a large online retailer like Amazon, or Apple. They will say something like your computer has a virus and they can fix it. And there are a bunch of other variations. Let's see. First of all, don't believe the person calling on the phone or on the pop-up ad. I think there have been a lot of flyers on my Ericsson or 972 reminding you of this. You want to verify the information given by the person contacting you by some external means. Never use the phone number or contact information given by the person contacting you. Always call that company through a phone number you already have, or contact means you get a different way. Don't fall for the "we've detected suspicious activity on your account. Please verify your username and password," or give other form of identification, because that can enable them to steal your identity. Some examples, and I think probably lots of folks at Charlestown can give me more examples than I have, but a cold call from a fake tech support specialist telling you your computer's infected with malware, a scary looking pop-up ad that says there's a problem with your computer and gives you a phone number to call for help. Don't call that number. A cold call from someone telling you they have money to give you so that they can only deliver by connecting to your computer. A cold call asking you to display your online bank account and putting a fake deposit on your account statement. The scammers then lead you to believe they made a typo on the fake refund issued and ask for a gift card as a refund to them. One that happened to somebody last night who contacted Ann and me was someone got an email saying that someone had logged into their new Mac and that they should change their username and password. The person clicked on the link. That's probably the no-no. What you want to do always then, if you get something like that, even though it's the link that looks very legitimate, you should go to Apple or whatever it is separately and verify that your devices are the ones that are being used and that you can get in. A call to make at Charlestown when there's an unusual scam you haven't heard of before, or when there's something that really bothers you that others might fall for. or you have any concern that it may be true, you can call security. And so I'm putting the security phone number here because they're here to help support us and keep us safe. And they do deal with scams. So I have this bright, flashy thing that I've used in other presentations. Just before you act, check things out. Don't act rashly. If something's suspicious, if something's telling you to click, it's offering you something that seems really too good to be true, or something is pushing you to act quickly. Those are all reasons not to stop and to look for, is this real? Okay, that's what I had to say about scam. How to pick a reputable tech support site. The hardest thing to do may be to figure out what tech problem you need to solve. Is it hardware, software, network? First thing I recommend for anybody on anything is reboot your computer to verify you still have the problem. Check to make sure you're plugged in, that your cabling is working, and all those things. If it's a network problem and you're here at Charlestown, you should always call the IT help desk at 1-800-677-0211. So we've eliminated network issues. If the question's about hardware or software, contact the company itself. If it's Zoom, go to the Zoom support on zoom.us or on the app. If it's an Apple question, go to apple.com and look in the support there. Similarly with any of the other vendors. Don't rely on internet self-promotion of independent tech support sites. Don't Google tech support and take a provider from there. That's probably asking for trouble. Just looking at a recent article in manufacturer tech support, Apple scored an 82 out of 100, as well as a 5 out of 5 for phone support and 4 out of 5 for online support. And readers supported their problems were solved 79% of the time, I think, first try. The next two most highly rated companies were Microsoft and Dell. Their score is a little lower at 68 and 56 instead of 82. So if you're looking for in-house support, find somebody you trust for their recommendations. I do think the IT help desk is one of the places you should look at. For in-person support, you could also pick a major provider like Best Buy's Geek Squad. They're expensive, but they're reputable. The IT help desk will charge, but not as much as the Geek Squad. However, it may involve delay before they can schedule an in-apartment appointment. That is what I put together, and then I figured I can answer any questions. Figured that was a good enough idea. I don't see any questions in the chat, so okay, Jerry.
Okay. Any questions for Hope? I have muted everybody, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
I see Jerry, and he's unmuted.
All right, Hope, question. And this is a technical question, and I just throw it out for people to think about. You're familiar with the concept in Windows anyway of restore points.
Yes.
Okay. If people get in the habit and can get familiar with creating a restore point when their system is happy and healthy, that they can return to if something that they add to the computer or somebody else adds that they didn't want, that can be a big feeling of relief as you go back, and then you can work back to what you were trying to do. And just throw that thought out. But it's sort of a complex subject if you're not used to doing it.
Yes, for PCs, I know that I had been using restore points that way. What I've gotten much more used to with the Apple is the time machine backup, and I also use Carbonite. I think that having backups, you can restore single files from Carbonite as well as, if your computer gets totally hacked, you can wipe it clean and start over again. Uh, there are ways that's fairly simple to do. On the other hand, I don't think the Apple has the restore point the same way that the Mac does. And
Hope.
the iPad, one other thing, the iPad and the iPhone, you have your iCloud accounts
Thank you.
that serve as perfect examples of ways to start over. Because when you get a new iPhone, all you have to do is to basically load in all of the content that you had in the one before. And so if your phone gets damaged in some way or hacked in some way, you can get the backup from the iCloud, which is a very, very useful thing to do.
Hope is the iPhone and the iPad, are they as vulnerable to these attacks as a Mac computer?
Well, vulnerable in the sense that we're all human and we can click on things that can cause damage to us.
Okay. Is the damage that I was wondering about.
Well, if someone hacks in and steals your identity, that's damage.
Really?
Okay, Carbonite is an example of a backup software company, and I think there are a bunch of them. Carbonite's the one that I tend to like. There's Backblaze. There are others that I think people may know. Let me answer one other question. Does IT support ever charge for phone consultation? No, they charge when they come out to your apartment. So if they answer your question over the phone, there is no charge for that.
That I'm going to talk in general and then specifically about medical. This is a classic cartoon. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, which is basically to say that you don't know who's on the other end, particularly if they're giving you advice or want money, as Hope said, be very careful. What do you mean all my facts are wrong? I copied everything straight off the internet. So don't believe everything. Okay, I'm going to talk about the premise, don't trust and always verify. How life has changed with gatekeepers, curators, and influencers. Criteria to evaluate internet information, Wikipedia, Google, and then how I get medical information. Okay. Gatekeepers, curators, influencers. In the old days, before the internet, the gatekeepers, the people you really believed and would take at face value, had trust. And you think of Walter Cronkite or General Eisenhower or Julia Child. When they spoke, you believed them. Well, now with the internet, the barriers to become an influencer or a curator or a gatekeeper are very low, and anyone can be one. You don't need particular expertise or credentials to do this, and you can simply declare that I'm an expert, please listen to me. In addition, we now have enormous amounts of data easily available, but it may or may not be valid or correct. And the criteria for quality data are very variable. If you follow the COVID stuff, people now talk about peer-reviewed scientific data or publication. Well, just because something is peer-reviewed, which means it's read by other experts, doesn't mean it's necessarily correct or true. And finally, don't confuse precision and accuracy. If something looks precise, for example, if I now tell you it is 6:15 a.m. and 23 seconds, that is exceedingly precise, but that's not the correct time. So it's precise, but not accurate. Okay, much of this comes from the library world. I've gotten this from library websites, criteria for evaluating internet information. Firstly, is the information up to date? Many websites, but not all, will have a date. And if it's 6 years old, take it with a grain of salt. Just because the page has been updated recently doesn't mean that all the information on the page has necessarily been updated and is correct. And the key in all of this is cross-check. Look for other sources. Coverage. Does the website actually cover the topic thoroughly, and is it comprehensive if that's what you're looking for? If not, do you have to jump to other sources to fill in the gaps in the coverage? Is the host a reputable organization, or is it an individual? And remember, the author is not always the host of the website. And I'll show you an example of that later. The author may have a sponsor, which could mean that the sponsor has required the author to agree to certain terms or things to say or things not to say to be on that site. And they probably won't tell you this, so you really won't know this. When evaluating for authority, then pay attention to who the host or sponsor is in addition to the actual author. So it might be Dr. Smith, but is Dr. Smith at the Mayo Clinic, or is Dr. Smith at Podunk General? Has the author been doing this for a long while? Are there past posts available? And can you check them? Relevancy. Is the information you're getting related to the topic you're researching? You may find something to be interesting, but make sure it has meaning for what you're looking for. All of these are truisms and it's common sense, but as they say, common sense is not always very common. Biases. If the website has a lot of advertisements or product placement, like a bottle of Coca-Cola sitting on the desk, and particularly if the placements are prominent or distracting, you may not want to put too much credibility into it. The information, in fact, may be accurate and authoritative, but the appearance can undermine its credibility. And on the internet, you can sort of break things down into two areas. Is it an information source or is it a selling tool? And selling tools will have information, but again, it may or may not be accurate. Images and photos. Are the images real or photoshopped? Are they in context or are they taken from elsewhere? And there's some software where you can actually hunt down the image and it may tell you that this is a 17-year-old image. So here's an example. Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture and a quote next to it, purportedly said by Abraham Lincoln, and obviously that's not the case. Followers and language. How many people follow the presenter? Are the followers credible themselves? Is the site using civil language? Are they non-inflammatory or are they making outrageous statements? Are there errors? That doesn't speak well to the credibility of the site. And on the bottom, I give you 3 references from libraries around the United States where all of this is nicely summarized. Okay, so that's sort of the general overview. Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a wonderful source. It's got thousands and thousands of topics, overviews of topics, and entries. Most of them are pretty clear. It's fast, it's plentiful, it's free, it's available. Unfortunately, there's no way to know who the author of a Wikipedia entry is, meaning that you can't depend on the information they have provided as being accurate. Now, supposedly there are editors at Wikipedia who validate this stuff to a certain degree, but you really cannot trust certain things. Many entries have references. If so, many of them are URLs and you can just click on them and go straight to the reference. If you have that, do it. Now, my comment in regard to Wikipedia is that non-controversial data, like historical stuff, the dates of the Peloponnesian War, or who was the Union general at the Battle of Manassas. That's there. It's usually pretty reliable, particularly if it's old history. If it's more recent history, then it becomes political and sometimes controversial. Some scientific data is also good data and clear. Newton's first law of motion. Well, people are tending not to lie about that. Or if there's a statement to the effect that blood flows in arteries and veins, yeah, that's true. But not all scientific information is credible or trustworthy. And things which are commentary, reviews of recent events, things like that, should be taken with a large grain of salt. Google, search engines such as Google, and to a lesser degree Bing, use algorithms to filter or tailor the search results to you. So what you see will be tailored by Google based upon previous searches you've done, sites that you have viewed, what you've clicked on, and other data that can be gathered from your browser. And a lot of stuff can actually be gathered from your browser. And then Google will give you search results tailored based on a relevance algorithm. These algorithms are private, they're periodically changed. They have been litigated against the European Union, and to a degree in the US, are trying to get this changed and made more public and more obvious. In addition, there are ways to get onto Google higher up. I don't know if you've ever done a Google search and it tells you there are 683 pages in response to your query. Well, most people don't go beyond the second page. So there are techniques to get your site onto the first page or the second page. So what this means is if you do the exact same search using exactly the same words, you can get different results for different individuals, or you yourself can get different results if you do it at different times. So are you comfortable with the idea that a computer is making decisions about what information you are shown and what your search results will be? Okay, so comments. Be suspicious. Trust nothing. Always suspect underlying agendas. And I've always said people have primary agendas, secondary agendas, and even tertiary agendas. So check and recheck. What is true today may not be true tomorrow. Now, I think blood will continue to flow in arteries and veins tomorrow, not just today, but it's entirely possible that the COVID vaccines, which were 90% reliable 6 or 8 months ago, are now much less so. Things change. And sometimes questions you ask and data you search may simply not be answerable or are purely opinions, so don't expect to get a definitive answer. And that's fairly obvious, but some like this. Has climate change altered hurricane occurrence and strength? Some say yes, some say no. Is it safe to fly during thunderstorms? This is settled science. People will claim this is settled science. Maybe. So understand you have biases, other people have biases. Try to understand the website's bias. If you're looking for information on soft drinks and you go to Coca-Cola, they're not going to have a lot of good to say about Pepsi. Okay, so how do I get medical information? And I do this every day. And this is my methodology for getting good medical information. Firstly, use multiple sources such as aggregators to compare information. And I will show you an example of this. I use one called ProtoPage. It's the best I've found now. I used to use my Yahoo, which I liked, but it's not really supported anymore. And the other good one I liked was iGoogle, which I don't even think they run anymore. What this does is it allows you to get multiple feeds, usually RSS feeds, next to each other on the same computer screen. And I have a 27-inch screen, so I can get a lot of data on the geography. And you can get many different feeds on the same page. The feeds usually are headlines, which are URLs, and you can click on them and go directly to the article. When you do look at multiple sources, make sure they're not all the same source being retransmitted. For example, the New York Times is often sends out its information in syndicated ways so that other papers can report it. So you may see the same article in 10 different papers. Understand that sources have different points of view. A political story is told by Fox versus MSNBC. Or in the medical realm, if you go to a site describing surgery on the knee, you're probably going to get much more of a bias towards getting knee surgery than getting medical treatment. And then follow the story over time as more information becomes available. So the best sources you want are independent, preferably not self-interested sources, not surgeons advertising, for example. Multiple sources are preferable to a report based on a single source. Sources who verify or provide verifiable information or references are preferable to those who merely assert. Authoritative or informed sources are better, and named sources are better than anonymous ones. And the URL down there gives you a lot of information on sources. Okay, this is one that I like. It's called Newsflash. It's an app, you can download it on Apple. And it allows you, if you look on the top, if you can see my arrow, these are the topics you can look for. And it gives you up-to-date news. And each time you update the screen, it updates the news. So this is really breaking news information. These are the choices. This is extraordinarily broad. You can get news feeds from the US, UK, look at all those countries on the left, and you can get the following topics on the right. News in general, politics, world, sports, opinion, food, celebrity, entertainment. This is a good news source, and I look at it frequently during the day because I'm a bit of a news junkie. The next thing I want to mention to you is fact-checking websites. And you may have heard about these. One of them, the most known, I think, is Snopes, SNOPES.com. And these are websites which purport to verify or validate stories so that what you're hearing is gossip or urban legend or fake. But again, beware, some of these sites have their own biases or are shills for a particular organization, candidate, etc. And again, I give you a website on the bottom, which comes out of City University of New York, where they list a lot of these fact-checking websites. Okay. This is, as an example of that, Thomas Edison supposedly received a letter, and then I will read it. One day, Thomas Edison came home and gave a paper to his mother. He told her, "My teacher gave this paper to me and told me to give it only to you." His mother's eyes were tearful as she read the letter out loud to her child. "Your son is a genius. The school is too small for him and doesn't have enough good teachers for training him. Please teach him yourself." Many years later, after Edison's mother had died, he was looking through old family things. Now, one of the greatest inventors of the century he suddenly saw a folded piece of paper in the corner of a desk drawer. He took it, opened it, and on the paper was written, your son is mentally ill, addled. We won't let him come to school anymore. So his mother didn't quite tell him the truth. Edison cried for hours, and then he wrote in his diary, Thomas Edison was an adult child that, by a hero mother, became the genius of the century. It's a great story. It's been circulated for a long time, and it's fake. This is from Snopes. It's been around at least since 2016. A heartwarming anecdote that tells of the inventor, and the rating is false. Edison's mother received no such letter, and no evidence supports this claim. And there are a lot of these things that float around, and this is one of them. Okay, medical sources. In medicine, there are some stuff which is not particularly controversial, but there is a lot which is exceedingly controversial. And it could be political, it could be opinion, it could be that there's not enough data. And we're all aware that the country is going crazy in regard to the vaccines, wearing masks, quarantining, lockdowns. If it's controversial, you're not going to get a clear, definitive, correct, and true answer. It's just not going to happen. But if you are searching for detailed and technical information, or a broad overview of a medical disease, question, treatment, drug dose, etc., you will easily find that. Remember, though, that detailed information will usually be written for medical personnel with technical details in medical jargon-filled language. And medicine is as much an art as it is a science. And when I went to medical school, which is now 50 years ago, the dean came in on the first day and said, half of what we teach you is correct, half is wrong, and unfortunately, we don't know which half is which. That's true. Okay, these are very good, highly respected, broad overview sites that do not seem to have real biases. So when you read information on them about medical issues, you're getting good, real, straight information. They're updated quite frequently. I think the best one around that I like is the Mayo Clinic, highly respected. The articles are approachable. They're written for the public more than the physicians. And they have three nice things in there in particular: diseases and conditions. So you can look up a particular disease, you can look up a symptom, and then you can look up tests and procedures. What does it mean to get a PSA or a blood count? The next one is the Merck manual for the consumer. This is from the Merck Drug Company, but it's really spun off to a division or company, I'm not even sure which really has nothing to do with the drug part. And the drugs are only a minor part of it, and they cover all drugs. It's readable, it tries to avoid jargon. It covers symptoms, emergencies, normal values in tests, drug information, and more. And it's very useful, and it's free. Harvard has Harvard Medical has a very nice website. They have news reports, updates, common conditions. They have free information, and they have a paying newsletter, and it's highly authoritative. And then finally, there are a lot of disease and condition-specific websites. For example, the lupus website, the American Cancer Society website. And this is a URL that will list specific diseases and websites, most of which are pretty reliable. Okay, other broad overview sites that are somewhat more specific. The American Cancer Society is a very good website. Healthline.com, and this is a company. The aim is to present understandable information. The next one is RX List, that's drug list. It's easy navigation if you have any questions about drugs you take or are prescribed, and you can do it by the brand name or the generic name. Very importantly, it's got a drug interaction checker. As you probably know, People in our age group are often taking 5 or more, even many more drugs, and they can interact with each other and either prevent the action of one or both of the drugs or augment the action so you could get in effect an overdose. This is a good way to check whether the drugs might interact. In theory, your doctor and your pharmacist should know before they dispense the drug to you, but life doesn't always work that way. What they cannot do, though, is go beyond the FDA approved labeling. So if you want to know about experimental uses, you generally will not find it here. Another similar site, also private, is drugs.com, and it's pretty reliable. They have a nice pill identifier. So if you find a white pill with the letter 13 written on it in your drawer, this is where you will find out what it is. Other useful sites, Johns Hopkins, around the corner, similar to the Mayo Clinic, but not as comprehensive. There is a newsletter that I've been getting for years written by a doc, Dr. Merkin's newsletter. Very useful, practical, not too much jargon. I've been reading it for years, and he's useful, and I don't really disagree. See, the CDC, I used to have that on the first page as one of the reliable websites. I think now they've become very controversial. I think they've become very political. It's a bit problematic. On the other hand, moving away from COVID for the moment, it's full of data, lots of authoritative information. Like many government sites, though, it's hard to navigate. Similarly, the Food and Drug Administration, they have an excellent website, very complete, but hard to navigate. They've got their own internal search engine, which will tend to give you hundreds of hits, and it's going to be hard to get through it. Okay. Other technical and reputable sites, Medline Plus. This is the National Library of Medicine. It's part of the National Institute of Health. This for physicians is probably the best first stop. It's got references to millions of articles and topics. Another private company is Medscape, and they basically put out newsletters with clinical trial coverage, drug development. I read it every day. It's very useful. Some of the articles are very technical, but some are not. Google and Google Scholar, talked a little about Google before. And then there is one which is not free. It's essentially an online medical textbook that is updated very, very frequently. And it's called Up to Date. And I get it, and it's excellent. Okay, so what do I do actually? Somebody asks me a medical question, and I'm unfamiliar with it. For example, I'm a gastroenterologist, and somebody says, well, I'm getting patellar knee pain. What do I do? So my first response is to say, I know nothing about it. Let me look it up and get back to you. So I go onto Google and I search it. I did this 2 days ago, and I searched on patellar pain, and I got 12,400,000 results. But actually, this is pretty useful. This is the first page, and there are some questions, as you can see. How do you fix it? What causes it? And then in blue below it are the sources. The first one is the Mayo Clinic. And you go on that, and it's very useful. The next one is Hopkins. And then the third one down is Mayo Clinic. The fourth one down is the Cleveland Clinic. All of those are excellent. There is a little bit of a summary on the right, which I cut off when I copied the screen, which gives you the bottom line, overview, symptoms, treatment in non-technical language. So this is a very good way to start and get information. The next one is a little more unusual and a little more specific, and this can be harder. And this is eye pain, but only in one eye. So, you can get a headache and have a little pressure on your eyes, or if you don't sleep well. But what if you only have eye pain in one eye? And I searched on this and I only got 6 billion results. No, 6 billion results. Causes of pain in, around, or behind your eyes and treatment. What does it mean when only one eye hurts? And here you have to delve. And it's not easy, and you may or may not get a good answer. And you've got to be careful that you're not going to define something for yourself that is horrid and terrible and make you crazy, when in reality it's a simple problem. So this is where you have to be careful about how detailed you go. Okay, there are a lot of sites around that are symptom checkers that allow you to work through several questions, which will then lead you to a diagnosis. And this is one that is referenced here. This is the page I just showed. It's the one down here. 10 causes of pain in one eye, and it's from something called Boy Health, BUOY health.com. And it looks very reasonable. It could be conjunctivitis, pink eye, and when you click on it, you get to this. And on the left, in the yellow, here's how we work. You'll fill in the questions they ask you. They talk you through the symptoms. You get feedback on the symptoms. They then offer you the best care option, and they will check back with you over the next few days or weeks or whatever to see what's happening and how you're doing. And then you can talk with other people in the community. And this looks lovely. It really does. Until you delve a little deeper, and then you see that this is the developer of a digital, the chap on the lower left is a physician who created this. It's a digital health tool designed to offer a personalized symptom checker. This uses artificial intelligence. It's computerized. There are no people behind it. It's powered by an advanced machine learning and granular data technique to mimic an exchange you would have with your favorite doctor, using real-time accurate analysis of your symptoms. Now, this is their advertising. The company makes money, and I was talking about making money, by doing what's called white labeling. And what this is they purchase or they pay for information from other sites, which they then present to you as if it's their information. And this is legal. But what it's telling you is you don't know where they're getting their information from. This is a privately held company, venture capital backed, with 112 employees. I'm not sure I would put good faith in this. I don't know. So that sort of is where I'm at. This is what I do. Trust nobody and always verify. The
There's
end of the year, and that's an optimist. And that's it. I thank you.
There's a couple questions in the chat. One is, what are your thoughts on some of these forums that are designed for specific diseases that you can log in and there's like a community of people with the same disease offering support or help?
Yeah, well, depends upon who's sponsoring it. If you're going to start putting in your own specific medical information, I think you're asking for a bit of trouble. If you're getting very specific, and if you are complex, if you're taking a lot of medications, if you have more than one disease, I'd be very leery. Now, the other thing is when you get into a community, you're not necessarily getting expert advice. You're getting advice from other patients or other sufferers. In general, healthcare professionals won't be on these sites giving you advice. Partly it's illegal, partly you're not allowed to do it in some states. And I'd be very, very leery. But I don't want to get my information from other patients in general.
His opinion is of WebMD.
WebMD is very good. I use it as a news site.
Okay,
I really like that as a news site. I get a dozen a day and most are not too useful. And they do have a lot of medical information, but I tend not to use that only because I have UpToDate and a couple of other paying sources that I use.
okay.
And I'm good at the jargon, so I can cut right to the chase.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm looking for any other hands. I'm going to ask both those speakers to send their PowerPoints to
Sure.
me, and I'll save them as a PDF, and then the links will be active. Bart had a lot of links in his presentation that I'm eager to try, so we'll post those on the Google groups.
Great.
Did I see a hand go up? Hope, did you have?
I just want to
Any
say
comment?
that Bart made me very nostalgic because I wrote my first article on evaluating quality on the nets in the like I think it was 2003, and kept it up to date for at least 7 or 8 years. I put a copy of one of a link in one of the versions in the chat, and sort of what it was like to evaluate quality when there wasn't as much to the internet.